Christine Garvin, and welcome back to day 2 of the 2019 Hormone Summit. I'm so excited that you are here with us and that you've been here with us, and I'm really, really excited about this next interview. I just learned about this woman just a few months ago, and I can't even remember how I came across her on Instagram. I think somebody recommended her to me, and immediately I was like, ooh, she is very interesting. So her name is Beecher, and she is a medical intuitive, which if you don't know what that is, I'm going to actually let her explain that a little bit more in the interview. But really, it's all about sort of figuring out what's going on in your body and from a place of connecting to your intuition. And she helps to read that, which is a pretty amazing thing. I've been lucky enough to have a reading with her, and she is incredible. So besides me, she's also worked with people internationally. She's worked with CEOs, she's worked with celebrities, she's worked with psychologists. So she really knows her stuff, which is super cool because not necessarily everybody out there does. And she also has a background as a licensed professional counselor, which I think is really important in this work because she can bring in knowing how to, work with people on a different level. So she's also been featured in Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's online magazine, several times, and she's currently a contributor to Kourtney Kardashian's Poosh. So she's a really, really busy lady. Very excited that she's here today to talk to us about intuition and getting your hormones on track. So welcome, Katie.
Hi, Christine. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's actually jump into, I realized as I was doing the introduction, I'm like, not everybody would necessarily know what a medical intuitive is. So tell us what that is exactly.
Sure, that's true. Sometimes I say it and people look at me like I have 3 heads. So a medical intuitive basically can look into people's bodies and energy and tell them about what is going on in terms of symptoms. I do it very holistically. So I look at people's physical state, emotional state, spiritual state, what's going on with them. I create a report and a painting when I do my readings. And the report contains all sorts of things about, your history, trauma that's happened, relationships, family, basically anything that would go into how you're doing. And it's not just people who are sick, it's wellness as well. So it's kind of just being able to look into where a person is at and help them with any symptoms that they're having, but also help them with wellness.
Okay. So do most people that you end up working with kind of come to you with some ailments or sickness that they're trying to deal with?
Most of the time, yes, and it's varying degrees. Some people come to me with really severe illness, and sometimes they know what their diagnoses are. Other times people do not know, and it's sort of the mystery illness thing. And then other people just want to know more about staying well, staying fit, more about their relationships or their spiritual life or connecting with intuition. But no matter what people come to me for, we end up talking about all of it. So it's really kind of fun.
Yeah. I was like, that's from a holistic standpoint, right? So we're here to talk today really about, hormones, and that's obviously something that every woman has to deal with throughout her life, having them, not having them, the whole transitions, all that kind of stuff. So really, I'm curious how women can start to connect to their intuition and how that can help them with figuring out their hormones.
Certainly. I look at intuition a little bit differently, partly because of my Jungian, Carl Jung background. And the way that he thought of intuition was God within. And what I mean by that is this force that knows you completely. It sends you unconditional love, unconditional acceptance. Acceptance is different from love because it means that whatever's going on with you, you just say, it's here and I need to deal with it. And it's also a source of protection. So it's a way people can feel safe, and then, connecting with guidance. So I believe that everyone has medical intuition. And you don't have to be, it's not a woo-woo thing. You don't have to be some kind of a whatever medical intuitive to have it. And what I mean by that is, so when your kids are sick, or when you're sick, you start to feel something and you immediately have to decide, do I need to get some rest? What does this mean? Do I need to take something? Do I need to change my diet? What is that? So you start to use it. And people don't think of it that way. They just think, I don't know, maybe they're just so used to doing it, but when you have kids, you have to think about, what is this crying about? What are they trying to tell me? Do the kids, pulling on your ear, is that an ear infection? Do I need to take them to the doctor? So you're using it all the time.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's people think of what I do as such kind of an out there thing, and okay, I get very into it, but it's not so strange, and it's really about connecting. So what I try and help people with is how to connect, to their intuition and to their body. And it really starts with listening, listening to your feelings, not pushing them down. It's so tempting when we don't feel well. Right. Just, you know what, I'm just not dealing with that right now. I'm going to push it down. Or when we feel unpleasant in any way, emotional pain, whatever. And there's a difference between thinking about it and dwelling. Dwelling is not helpful, but to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. What is this about? What is it trying to tell me? If you are empathic, meaning picking things up from other people, which I think we all have some of that, does this have to do with me? Could I be picking this up from somebody I was just with, or my environment, or something I just watched on TV or heard about on the radio? Where is this coming from? And then you can listen, deal with it, and try and figure out what those, either the symptoms or the feelings mean, and how to go forward.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think a lot of people even comprehend that things that they watch on TV can really impact their health. I mean, even though it makes perfect sense when you think about it, but it's just not something that people tend to I guess, think about that much. And it's like, because our brain can't necessarily tell the difference between what's real and what's not real when we see it in that way, right?
Right. Or they go the other way and they think that they're being impacted so strongly by everything around them, or by the people around them, that they have no power over it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is a big thing these days with, like empaths and like highly sensitive people, right? Is that some people struggle to leave the house because they feel like they take on too much of everybody's stuff. Yeah.
Right. And we have that ability, we have the power over ourselves. That's our energy. That's our space. And we should never give it over to anyone else.
Right.
Ever. And in fact, I had a client contact me yesterday who said, I was talking to this energy healer or something, and he told me that I had these 4 entities around me who were sort of attacking me. And first she said, did you feel anything like that? And I said, no. He said, the treatment's going to be really expensive and take 4 sessions. And I said, just stop right there.
If 4 sessions, huh? to remove entities,
right? And he was going to do the removing.
Of course,
right. And I said, no. I said, if there's anything negative going on, if there's any, energy in your body, you can do something about that. You can. And don't give your power over to anyone.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to go off on that tangent because I think it's really important too. So do you recommend to people to like do sort of like energy clearings on themselves a decent amount of the time, or, so that doesn't happen, so things don't attach to us?
See, I'm not really a big believer in attaching.
Gotcha.
I'm not saying it never happens, but I'm saying that I think people give too much credence to that because it's easier to blame things on other people or other energy than to take responsibility ourselves.
That's so true.
And to say, you know what, this is something that I brought on, or this is something I can control. Right. And I need to, if this person's irritating me or whatever, I need to do something about it. I need to stop that relationship or change it, or I need to get out of that job, or I need to. And it's so much easier to say, oh, you over there, you can fix this for me. This must be some force or this or something else, instead of taking responsibility and saying, you know what, I need to deal with this.
Right.
So
Yeah, we're at a time in history, right, where we all kind of need to step up and take care of our own shit.
Yeah,
So that
exactly.
the world will change, right? Because we keep putting it on others to change things, but really it has to be and
And
start within, right?
exactly. And I love energy healing. I mean, I love Barbara Brennan healing. I love Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I love about those things is that you work with the healer, and they help strengthen you and
Mm-hmm.
heal what's in you to help you um, either fight off negative stuff or whatever it is. But they work with you. It's not doing it for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a big difference there.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to hormones, because
Yeah,
it's a like huge thing, right? Like I
definitely.
mean, how would you guide women around
Well, when I started to prepare the questions for this, I was thinking about, okay, so there's the sex hormones,
that?
if
Mm-hmm.
you will, but then there's all these other hormones too. The thyroid hormones
Yeah.
and the adrenals and the dear God, I looked it up, and there's about 50 of them
Yeah.
that our body makes,
Yeah.
and they all interact with each other. So, and then they do different but similar things. So again, my first thought is to pay attention to how you feel. We're all different people. And as you, I'm sure, know, you can go get your hormone levels tested, and some number on one person can feel totally different on another person.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in quality of life and doing
Mm-hmm.
what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, it's starting with how you feel, what makes sense to you. I'm a huge believer in being as natural as possible
Mm-hmm.
and keeping as many toxins out as you can. So if you can do, bioidenticals, if that's the direction that you feel drawn to,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing. I work with some women who say, I'm really afraid to do hormone replacement because I've heard all these horror stories. And
And it's
I,
because it's based off of the chemical based ones.
right. Or even sometimes the natural ones,
Yeah.
because people with, breast cancer history. And I always say, do not let fear make your decisions for you. Get
That's
as much information as you can, talk to as many people as you can, talk to trusted professionals, just get as much information as you can, because you don't want to walk around with symptoms of low hormones, because your life is not pleasant if you can't sleep and if you're a bitch.
Yeah.
And if, it's not fun.
Yeah.
And really, as you know, again, different delivery systems are different. I did not have luck with testosterone cream, for example. And about a month and a half ago, I got the pellet implanted into my butt. And I've been really happy with it.
Yes. I think
So
that's so important too, right? Is that I think sometimes people try one form or one thing and they're like, oh my God, it was horrendous. And then they say, I'm never doing that again. But you do have to, it is a little trial and error because we all are individual, right?
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And
And the
then,
fact that you brought up, I love that you brought up about thyroid and adrenals, because I try and tell my clients all the time, like, first we need to start with the gut, right? We got to make sure that the gut is working. And then it's like, well, yeah, where are your adrenals? Where are your thyroid? And that's kind of before you even tap into the sex hormones. You want to look at all of that,
exactly.
And I do know that people struggle with their doctors because a lot of times their doctors are like, everything's fine, right? But I think that's a perfect example of when to really trust your intuition, right? Because most women will go to the doctor and the doctor will say, well, everything looks fine. And they're like, but I don't feel right,
Yeah.
Go with that, right? And sometimes that means you're going to have to search out a good practitioner, and you might have to work with several until you get there.
Absolutely.
Following your intuition, right?
Absolutely. And somebody who, it took me a while to find somebody that I really liked, who I felt comfortable doing the pellets and things. And there's different kind of pellets. So there's different, unfortunately, the amount of information out there is overwhelming.
It is.
And so working with someone like you or someone like me can be super helpful, because we help people connect to their intuition, help people connect with the physical stuff. And, I help people find practitioners who I trust and who they
That's
can
awesome.
work with.
Yeah, because I think that's half the battle sometimes, right? women know something is wrong, but it's like, how do I figure out what's going to work for me? And also, I don't know if this is something that you come across, but it will be an investment. It will be an investment. And I think we need to switch our brains around from, okay, so we've had this insurance for so long that's covered us in ways that don't even help a lot of times, and a lot of times if you're chasing after things, you end up spending more on co-pays and all kinds of stuff too over years than if you just make that investment to go with somebody, good and and do what needs to be done. Yeah.
All the time. And even, something like a Dutch test, which is a very intricate hormone test. Insurance doesn't cover that.
Right.
But the amount of information you get is amazing. So
it's amazing. Yeah. And we'll be talking about the Dutch test later in the week
sure.
on this hormone summit, because I do think it's such an important one, and so a lot of women don't even know about it yet because their doctors don't know about it. So yeah.
No, they don't.
Wow. Yeah. There's so many things that come up for me around it, but really thinking about like using your intuition, even when you research stuff, right? Like, okay, does this sound right or not? And I know for me, sometimes I can get caught up. Like recently, I'd heard about the carnivore diet a while ago, but for some reason I fell down this rabbit hole of the carnivore diet, and I'm reading all these things and it's just like, oh my God, it's amazing. And and you can get so pulled into that. But then I had to, step back and really connect with, okay, well, how does that feel to my body?
Right. I'm so not a believer in protocols.
Yeah.
Including diets, because you really, again, this gets into intuition and even hormones too, because what you eat affects your hormones and your gut and the whole thing. So if you're listening to what your body wants and chewing your food and listening as you're chewing and listening after you eat the food, your body will tell you what it needs and what you are sensitive to and what works really well with it. And just saying, well, everyone should eat one way, that doesn't make sense.
Right. At all. Yeah. And our bodies are really a biofeedback system. Like you were just saying, if you really pay attention to the digestive process and what you crave, I mean, your body will tell you a whole lot of stuff for sure.
Definitely.
So what are some ways, I'm just curious about, some of the spiritual aspects of hormones and how we can kind of, I guess, work. Like, I guess, what does it come down to sometimes when we have things off in our body in general, whether that's our hormones or something else? Like, do you think that there's a spiritual component to that sometimes too?
Huge. Absolutely. That's the basis of the work I do. It's really, I believe that our symptoms, including if we have an accident or something like that, those are all signals from our intuition. That we are not following our path, that we're not listening, that we're not taking care of ourselves, whatever the case may be. So if your hormones are out of balance, if anything is just not syncing, that's your intuition's way of saying you need to pay attention. And you either, again, need to eat healthy, you need to get rest, you need to take care of yourself, you need to get away from this person who's annoying the shit out of you, you need to do something different. And some people will come to me and say, I want some supplements and let me know what I need to do. And we get so much deeper and I ask about, well, what about this with your marriage? Or what about this with work? And they say, I didn't make the connection. So then they find out that they have to do the hard work.
Right. They're like, darn it, I wanted to take a pill.
Right, exactly. And that's where it gets down to taking responsibility, again. But our hormones and everything we do, spirituality is such a big part of our life. And a lot of people don't really know even what I mean when I talk about the spiritual impact of things or spiritual root causes, because a lot of people have heard of stress, how stress impacts your health. and the cortisol and that whole thing. And emotional and spiritual can overlap a lot.
Yeah.
And when I talk about something having a spiritual impact, what I mean by that is that it can influence our energy, our relationship with our intuition, our relationship with ourselves. It can influence our life purpose. So it's a lot deeper than just emotions on a surface level.
Right.
And it still can, affect mood and self-esteem and things like that. But again, it all overlaps. So I think it's harder to define the spiritual relationship. But when someone comes to me and they say that they just feel off, they don't feel like themselves, they don't feel like they're connected, I always ask about, do you even know you have intuition? What is your spiritual relationship? How do you connect with your intuition? What do you what do you do? So, because if we don't, we feel very alone.
That's such a good point. Yeah.
Very alone in the world. So so I feel like I'm going off on a tangent a little bit. Hopefully I'm not.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah. So I think that, and again, hormones influence like our romantic relationships and our sexual selves and all of that. So if those are off, and then also, acne and skin. And so if we have too much testosterone or whatever is causing the acne, we don't want to relate to people. And actually, that's a really good one. That's a really good one to use, because your skin is reflective of your inner emotions. And I've had people actually who get some sort of rosacea or acne or some sort of skin thing, and they often have social anxiety.
Oh, yes. I can definitely speak to that personally.
But it's not necessarily like, it's kind of a chicken egg thing, because it's, do you get that skin thing to then be able to say, you know what, I don't want to show myself to the world. Right. Or did that cause the social anxiety? And I don't think it really matters. It's just look at the whole thing in totality and what it's doing and how it's impacting your life, and think about healing and loving yourself and getting past that, so that you can balance all the stuff going on in your body.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it makes me think about, trauma that we have as kids, right? I mean, this is going off a little bit, but I'm working with a somatic therapist right now, and we're even talking about precognition, which, that not everybody's going to be into that belief system, but if you are, that like even trauma can happen at that point, and so we've got ancestral trauma, we've got, past lives, if you believe in that trauma, we've got what happened to us. We've got so much as adults, I think, like that, that happens. But I also believe in the opposite side is that we're super resilient, right? That's why we're still here. And I think, sometimes we can get bogged down in the trauma because it's just so much, but we have this other side of things. But, do you think that if people don't deal with their trauma on some level, that they're probably going to have issues with their hormones?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely, 1,000%. Because, not to mention the whole cortisol thing. If you bury your emotions, then what I find interesting about trauma is it's not, at least in my experience, it's not so much that people relive the traumatic experience, that they're terrified of it happening again and that they can't do anything about it.
Yes.
And they're not even identifying with that, because they are living in the past, and so they think it's about that previous experience, and they're not identifying with the fact that, oh my gosh, like sometimes they do as well, but you're either living in the past or the future. So you're not living with how powerless you feel right now.
Wow.
And if you are feeling anxious all the time, of course there's cortisol and things going on, but what's happening on an even deeper level is everything gets shut down in your body. You can't just push down painful stuff. everything gets shut down. And for example, and this relates to female hormones, it's very difficult to be creative when you're dealing with trauma and anxiety. And kind of a weird thing that happened with my female organs. I was going through a really stressful time in my life, and in another former life, and I'm an artist too, and I've been painting every day. So while I was doing all the trauma, I stopped painting because I just felt very depressed and very preoccupied and got very much into victim mode or whatever you want to call it. So started having this really bad abdominal pain, and it went on for about a year. Didn't know the cause, had a zillion traditional medicine scans and appointments. They did a couple surgeries even, took out my appendix, found a weird cancerous tumor, but that was not the cause of the thing. Nobody knew what it was, kept wanting to do expensive tests, and finally I was just like, yeah. So my gynecologist finally could feel something strange about my uterus, still no idea what it was. And I finally, I'd done having kids. I kind of said, just take it out. I can't live like this. I was in bed with this pain. It was like so bad. And so get out of the surgery. She said, okay, well, I had to take one of your ovaries too. And said, okay. She said, I've never seen this before. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, it's me. My fallopian tube had wrapped itself around my uterus and choked it off.
Whoa.
So to me, I immediately said, oh, I know what that is. She goes, well, you need to tell me. I don't know what it is. I said, yeah, I was painting every day and I stopped painting, and the uterus is the center of creativity. So physically, it was reflective of what I had done, which is shut off my creativity. And she sort of just, we knew each other pretty well by then, and she sort of just looked at me like, okay. But kind of said, well, I guess that could make sense. But I knew immediately. Yeah. And so, your hormones get shut off, your creativity gets shut off because you're living with this stress all the time, and nothing was happening. And then that's all connected with your female power, that second chakra stuff. So you just feel totally helpless. And when you're in bed with pain, you are totally helpless. So
yeah, I know. It's just, oh man, it just keeps building on itself. Yeah. Yes. I mean, and probably a lot of people that are watching know that, I had this fibroid that seemed to come out of nowhere and, grew relatively fast. And pretty early on, I was like, okay, so what are, the spiritual component? I'm like, like spiritual aspects of a fibroid. And, it made a lot of sense to me there's a couple different ideas around it, but, basically like, it is your creative seat, and it's also the left ovary, I think, is your feminine, and then the right is the masculine. And so like, mine was more towards the right, and that kind of pushing that, like I was pushing too much in my life, right? So it was like I was doing creative stuff technically, but really I was in this pushing mode of too masculine and not enough of connecting to the feminine flow of things, and it's allowing for that, right? And I also was feeling a stuckness around it was both work and creativity together, but I was feeling stuck, like I wasn't getting anywhere. And so of course this fibroid forms because of this super stuck feeling, and it was like, I think that there's so many levels of that happening in women's lives, especially with the expectation that we do so much, that we have super successful careers, that we have super successful families, that we, look a certain way, our bodies are like buff, that we eat all these things. And then, our bodies are just like, no, this is not the way the feminine is supposed to be, right? It's way too much. Yeah. And what's interesting about that is that of all my blog posts, I wrote a blog post about fibroids and spiritual connection. And to this day, that's the most looked at blog. So there's a lot of women out there that understand that these things are connected.
It also gets into fertility, the spiritual aspect of fertility too, because, I work with people on fertility, and sometimes I do see fibroids, or I see endometriosis, or I see whatever PCOS stuff, But then I also get into, well, how's your relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want this baby?
Good point. Right.
Is there trauma that you think could be impacting your ability to be a good mom?
Mm-hmm.
I have people who have had cancer in the past who are afraid that if they have a baby, it's going to bring back the cancer. Like, it's interesting what our bodies do to us, what our minds do to us.
Right.
And so all of those feelings and the fears and your underlying intuitive knowing that your relationship is not good and that you should not be bringing a baby into the relationship, that all affects your hormones, which affects your fertility.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes, women won't even admit to themselves that they're having those fears or those emotions, right? It's just like, no, this is what I've planned on doing, or this is what I mean, I know that, like, I've made the plan, so I'm going to do this, whether it feels right anymore or not.
Yeah. Or they just get caught up in being so depressed because they can't have a baby, or just feeling like, what's wrong with me, or am I being punished? Or instead of, what do I really want? Like, what is really going on with my feelings?
Right, absolutely. Well, you brought up endometriosis, which I think is a really interesting thing to think about, because that it seems like it's being diagnosed. I mean, I think it's being diagnosed a lot more than it used to be. I don't know if we have it more than it used to be or not. But what do you see any like particular trauma connection to that? Or
I do find endometriosis, anything in that area, the fibroids, the ovarian cysts, such a huge connection with that, and sexual abuse. And it does make logical sense if you think about it, that you feel like you as a female is somehow flawed, is somehow, if you think about the spiritual aspects of sexual abuse or sexual assault, is that we try to take responsibility for it because it feels better than feeling helpless, even though it's not we didn't do anything to cause it. Right. And especially if it starts at a young age, if there's incest or if there's sexual abuse as a child, because the abuser tells you it's your fault. They blame it on you. It's this big mind game. And then it's this big secret, there's all the shame attached to it. So you learn to shut down your intuition, learn to shut down your feminineness. There's a fear of, if I'm attractive, what if this happens again? Because I was told that it's because I was pretty or whatever that's happened to me. So I think what I see when I look into these people's bodies is this energy that kind of is festering. It goes around in circles, and it's not healthy energy, and then it never escapes.
Right.
Painful feelings that never get out. And of course, if you think about what an overgrowth or a growth of damaging cells are, it's just this sort of festering of a mass. And so thinking of it that way, it makes sense that you'd have this unhealthy cell growth, basically.
So do you recommend for people in those situations to go work with a therapist, get some kind of help, or do you feel like they can? I do.
I do. I think people really need support. I think trying to do it ourselves it's noble, but we don't have to. And you need somebody to look at you in a loving, supportive way from the outside, because it's so easy to think that we're not doing it well enough, or be hard on ourselves, or just whatever. But I do think it's really important to get support and help. And my healing from the eating disorder, I started with a Jungian counselor, and Jung is all about trusting your intuition and connecting with your body and self-love and things like that, and using symbolism, which partly why I love it. But there's all different kinds of therapy, like EMDR is great. There's a lot of different modalities, but I think it's really important to just say, you know what, I need some help with this and some support, and it's okay.
Yeah. And I think that's so, it's important too, to think about even using your intuition with a therapist, right? And being okay, I'm going to try this person out. They may or may not work. But
definitely,
one of the things that what I've kind of learned with working with my intuition and getting a little bit better at it over time is I learned of this somatic therapist from a friend, and she told me about her, and right away my body was like, yes.
Great stuff. Yeah.
It just was that. Yeah. And it was funny because she had a 2-month wait list. And she said, oh, if you find someone else, that's totally fine. And I said, no, I'm waiting for you. I just knew, and that's literally the second I walked in there, I was like, okay, this is my woman for sure. Versus in my 20s, I did therapy, and literally the entire 3.5 years I worked with a woman, I was like, meh, and so, it's, I was young, that's fine. And I learned stuff from that situation too. But I also love my therapist, definitely, is supportive, and not just supportive, but really encourages working with my intuition and learning how to do these things so that I can keep doing them on my own and I don't need her forever too.
That's the key. I think my most impactful thing, that was not a great sentence, but the most impactful thing I do with people is help them build up themselves and trust their own intuition, because I don't ever want someone substituting my intuition for theirs.
Right.
Ever. I want them to feel strong and them to be able to say, this feels right to me, or this doesn't, and this is what I need to do to take care of myself, or because that's what they take out into the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's how you heal.
Absolutely. And it's really stepping into your feminine power, right? Because the old patriarchal way is somebody else telling you what's right or wrong for you, a doctor telling you what's right or wrong for you, and you going by what they say, right? And we're breaking down that whole paradigm right now and learning how to step into what is truly our feminine power, which is connecting to our intuition. So absolutely. I'm just like,
even for men, I mean, it's all really important to trust your intuition. I think women have been, you hear female intuition. But I think it's really important, especially starting at a really young age with kids, teaching them what's their intuition. What does this mean? How do I trust myself? It's so important.
So can you tell us one way that you recommend for women to start connecting to their intuition?
Sure. So my favorite way, which I think I taught you, my favorite way is to think of your intuition as a person that you're having a conversation with. You can also do this with your body. So talking to your body or talking to your intuition, and to physically write down a question or comment or your feelings, and then just sit and wait for what you hear and feel and write that down and write back to it with your answer. Wait for that comment again, write that down, write back to it. So have a written dialogue with your intuition. And it's so much more powerful to do it in writing because it helps you to focus. It becomes a meditation, quiets a lot of that gook that is in our head. And when we use our arm and hand, it involves our body automatically. So we're getting intuitive information from our bodies. And it's not necessarily just words. You could see a picture, you could see colors, you could see a symbol, whatever it is that you're getting, just pay attention to that. And you don't have to do it for a long time. Sometimes I just say, is there anything you want to tell me? And it can be a 5-minute thing, but just to start allowing your feelings, allowing yourself to feel, to not push things down. And there's no right or wrong way to do that. The only rule I have is just don't overthink it. So, don't worry about, is this my intuition? Am I making this up?
Right.
Just go with it.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And I've made it a practice. I don't always get a chance to do it in the morning, but I like to do it in the morning. And I like to actually, because, I have woods that surround me, the Blue Ridge Mountains. And so I like to take my notebook out there, find a good place to sit, because for me, that space, I can get out of my head just naturally a little bit more and then really get into it. And yeah, I mean, it's I highly recommend people do it because it really is such a powerful yet simple process. It's making it part of your day.
It is. And when I learned it, I was 16. I didn't even know what my intuition was.
Wow.
And I can honestly say that doing that is what not only saved my life, but helped cure me from bulimia.
Wow.
Like
You
that's
have
how hard
a
it is.
lot in your life, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's more than anybody else, but
I guess we all have, but it's, yeah, I mean, that's why you're a healer. I mean, I think
right.
most healers, definitely they go through some things in their lifetime. So that
Yes.
we know how to help guide others. So
Exactly. That was why. That's why I recovered. I know it's because so I could do this work. And
yeah, it's amazing. Well, so tell us a little bit more about where we can find you, because I know some people are definitely gonna be like, I need to talk to her.
sure. So my website is katiebeecher.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way and the easiest way. You can write to me. You can make an appointment right on my website.
Okay.
You can also sign up for my mailing list, and I have some events coming up, different places, but some in New York City in the fall.
Fun.
And I'm working on a book, so I'm not sure when it's going to be out, but that's in the works about what I do, helping people connect with intuition, connect with their bodies, using some of the techniques that I use in my readings at home, things like that. Helping you heal as an individual versus using protocols.
Yes.
I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook page.
What's your Instagram handle?
It's just Katie Beecher, Medical Intuitive.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And I'll put all of this in the notes for the show too, so people can click on through and find their way. Yeah. That's really awesome that you're going to be in New York. I'm jealous for people living in New York.
I know.
You see clients internationally too?
I don't know. I see probably 99% of my clients I see online.
Okay.
Either Skype, FaceTime, whatever. And I create the 4-page report with just knowing someone's name and age.
Oh, wow.
Without knowing anything else about them. I don't like to know anything else about them.
Yeah.
And then I also create a symbolic painting with watercolor.
That's amazing.
So I send the report and painting before we meet. And then during the meeting, I also get more information from my guides. And we talk about everything. People can ask questions. There's no limit on the subjects.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I definitely highly recommend. So Katie, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was amazing. I know that, so many women are just going through so many ups and downs with health right now, with their hormones, and really trying to figure things out. And, my big goal with this summit is to just help educate women on these different facets so that they really know what to do, because we haven't been taught about our hormones at all. But I think, this was so important because it really does come back to your intuition. It does always comes back to, well, how does this make me feel when I hear this thing, when I'm told this thing, when I, see this thing, when I try this food or this supplement. And so that's really, that's base, right? We need that at base. So thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Yay. All right. So we will see you guys tomorrow for day 3 of the Hormone Summit. We have lots of good stuff to come up this week, including talking about the Dutch test and bioidentical progesterone, a couple things that came up today. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you soon. Bye.